Hello and welcome to the brand new podcast, Titanic Legacy, a creative collaboration between the Titanic Book Club and Cove Pod, the Carganilla online variety entertainment podcast. This new show will explore Titanic's lasting impact with conversations with creators, authors, artists, historians, filmmakers, and more, who continue to produce creative work inspired by the Ship of Dreams. I am your host, Paul Carganilla, and today's guest, Simon Medhurst, is the author of the book Titanic Day by Day, 366 Days with Titanic, but his connection to the ship is so much more than that. Can't wait to explore that with him. And thank you all at home for tuning in and welcoming us into your lives for the next half hour or so as we talk about Titanic and her long-lasting creative inspiration and impact. This is Titanic Legacy, the podcast. And as I mentioned, I'd like to welcome to the show Simon Medhurst. Hello, sir. Where are you joining us? Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from Essex in the United Kingdom. So that's the first time I've had a round of applause as I've entered in, actually. So that's that's a good start.
Well, through the magic of technology, we're able to connect. I'm here in Southern California, and I know it's nighttime there, so thank you for joining us after a day.
That's okay. No problem.
And it looks like you're there on the dock. Behind you, you have a beautiful backdrop there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on board here. So that was it's been quite a useful one to have as my backdrop when I do my podcasts or chats. So that's just quite a nice backdrop rather than having a screen that changes and you lose your head. That sort of idea. So yeah.
It's legit there in the room. And thank you again for taking the time to join us. It's our first time actually speaking with each other, communicating over Instagram. But I was first introduced to your story on the podcast, a great podcast if anybody out there is looking for more Titanic content, Alexandra Boyd and Nelson Aspen's Titanic Talk. And I have since heard your story a couple times on a couple other shows, and I just am so grateful for the chance to be able to talk to you about it, because not only have you written this book, but you have a personal connection that you had no idea starting out when you were younger. But so can you bring us through, when did you become interested or feel connected to Titanic in your lifetime?
Well, basically, I grew up with no knowledge of Titanic at all. So I think it was probably about my early 20s. I decided that, I went to the library actually and picked up a Titanic book. And I think I was with my children and picked up a book, and then it sort of started. So then I sort of began collecting signatures and books and models and all sorts of bits and pieces. But it wasn't till I was, it was 2012, the year 2012, when I actually found my birth father. And then that's when I found out that I was actually a direct relative of someone on Titanic. And then obviously found out that it was actually Robert Hitchens, who was the helmsman and quartermaster on Titanic. So up to that point, I had all these things, and all of a sudden I've gone from a collector to a relative, and it always a bit of a strange thing, especially when it was like exactly 100 years on in 2012 that I found him as well. So so it's been quite a journey since 2012, definitely.
Wow. So just to bring that back a second, because it can kind of fly over your head if you're not listening closely. Yes. So you were interested in Titanic, and how old were you when you finally met your birth father?
I was about 45 when I found him. Yeah. Well, so say early 20s, I was collecting from. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is quite an odd thing to do, isn't it? Not everybody collects Titanic stuff. But that's how it sort of worked.
You're a collector for about 20 years. You finally meet your birth father around the age of 45, and then he drops this knowledge bomb on you that you're related to the man who was at the helm.
Yes.
When Titanic...
It really started with this. Well, it started with this picture here. This is a picture that I had from when I was. Well, I've always known the picture, and I was always told that was my real nan. So that's all I ever knew, and that's me being held by my real nan.
Yeah.
And so I knew that picture from early years, but never knew who it was. But then when I found my birth father, he said, "Oh yeah, I took that photo. That's Robert Hitchens' daughter." So
Wow.
so that was quite a bombshell in itself. That so it gave me that real connection straight away. Knowing that Robert Hitchens' daughter was holding me there in the photo. So that was quite an emotional moment, really, to find that out.
Did you feel some sort of unspoken or mysterious connection? I know, like, you started collecting, but did you have any inkling at all that you had this
No,
sort of connection?
no, none at all, none at all. I didn't. I would honestly say I didn't know who Robert Hitchens was. I would probably say I was like a lot of people and would have known Captain Smith and Light Toller and a few of the well-known officers, that sort of thing. But other than that, no, no knowledge at all. So I was collecting signatures and all sorts of things, and then now I'm actually, it's a bit of an odd one because I'm actually closer related to someone on Titanic than some of the signatures I was collecting. So it was all sort of very, very strange.
Yeah. So, what's the next step after you find out you're related to Robert Hitchens? Do you do a deep dive into any books, anything you can read on him?
Yes, yes. I mean, Sally Nielsen, who was a great granddaughter of Robert Hitchens, she wrote a book about Robert Hitchens, which for me was quite a good book to delve into the life of Robert, really. And then obviously from there, go and search, find out as much as I physically could on his life at sea after Titanic, and all those sort of things. That was sort of a bit of a journey then, and also to, I thought, to be honest, that I was probably the only one that knew anything about or didn't know about Titanic, but the only one that was interested in Titanic because I'd never been in any Titanic circles. I thought, okay, let's start like a Facebook group and do some bits and pieces to see if anybody else is interested in Titanic. Because I thought it was probably only about half a dozen of us. Um, so I think that was my biggest shock to realise that there's a huge interest in Titanic. Um, all aspects of Titanic, whether it be the building of Titanic or whether it be the people of Titanic, um, just the whole story there.
And once you discover these groups, these communities, and that's something I have conversations about a lot, is just
Mm,
like being able to, especially social media has made it so much
mm.
easier, but to connect with groups who have similar interests to you. Do you do events, and have you visited Belfast and all those places?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to go to Belfast this year. They invited me over, so I was able to do some interviews over in the Titanic experience, which was quite nice. That was a good opportunity. I think probably my next stop would be nice place to go would be New York. I think that's somewhere I'd like to see some of the places in America where some of the exhibitions are there. Southampton is very good, obviously from a UK point of view. I'd like to go to Liverpool. There's lots of places I'd like to go, and I wouldn't say that I just generally do events. I quite enjoy joining them if I can. So that's yes, but yeah, I love all things Titanic as well. So apart from the normal things, it's just you enjoy it all.
What we'll get to your book in just a second, but you have your Instagram is amazing, and I was following you before I learned about your book. But your Instagram handle is Titanic underscore memorabilia, and why was it called that when it was created?
Uh, I think because I'd set up a Facebook group called Titanic Memorabilia. And then I thought, well, I'll connect that to it as an Instagram. Um, I think possibly if I'd had the opportunity, I might have changed that to not that, but it is what it is now. I don't think there's any way you can sort of change it without destroying everything that you've got. So
Right.
it stayed that way, and yeah, so that thankfully it seems to be fine. But I do try if I can to show memorabilia as well. So it's sort of part of the whole story really, with all the things that there is.
I love everything you share on that channel, and again, it's on Instagram. It's Titanic_memorabilia. You share video clips of interviews with survivors, and you show like modern photos. It's not just memorabilia, but I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you are a Titanic enthusiast. If you got to make sure you're following Simon there on the Instagram, and so. Obviously, as we're having this interview on the Titanic Book Club YouTube channel, you happen to decide one day to put a book together. Tell us about what inspired that.
Yeah. Well, I love the stories of Titanic, and I'm very much into the personal side of Titanic. So for me, I didn't want to do another Robert Hitchens book. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So I decided that I actually wanted to do something that would encapsulate everybody on Titanic if I could. So that it was a way of bringing the whole story together. And then it took me about 7 years to get the book together. And I mean, I be honest, I've got a lot to thank for Jill Collier, who was sort of a bit of an inspiration right at the beginning, really, with George Behe as well. So they were really helpful at the time. They probably don't remember now, but they were at the time. And so I put it together, and then I decided what I wanted to do was every page would have, the births and deaths of those that were on Titanic, and also have some facts and figures, and have some sort of to do with the actual event itself. So it would be survivors in the lifeboat. What did they feel? What did they say? So it'd be newspaper articles, survivor quotes from the inquiry, all those sort of things. But just sort of so it's easier to read it as one page at a time, rather than trying to wade through a big book. Some people struggle to do that anyway. So it just gives you a page at a time, daily reading, if you like, of the story of Titanic.
I love it. I've had it on my. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I was seeing if it's up here on my bookshelf, but I believe it's downstairs on the coffee table. Because
got mine.
Yes, there it is. No, but I keep it on the coffee table because it's you have a minute to sit on the couch, flip it open, and read a day, or flip to whatever day it is, and you get a little bite-sized piece of Titanic knowledge. And the way it's crafted and put together, I just think it's brilliant. And as we've had conversations before, like I'm a big fan of the book, and I encourage anybody out there to pick it up. If you don't have it yet, you can grab it on Amazon. Again, it's called Titanic Day by Day, 366 Days with the Titanic. You can also get it on the publisher Pen and Swords website. And yeah, it's a great collection. And you mentioned it took 7 years to put together.
Yeah, it's quite, because of the way it's written. You have, obviously there's so many quotes in the book. What you don't want to do is have the same quote on another page.
Right.
So for me, I wanted to make sure that every day is unique. So there's not a copied page from another page. So when you're editing it, because there's so many pages to work through, you might have a long quote in one part of the book, and then the same quote but in a bigger quote later on. So I didn't really want to do that. So I wanted to make sure that it was unique. Daily was unique. There's no sort of repetitive stuff. You're not going to pick it up one day and think, oh, I remember reading that on day, in January the 2nd. I remember reading that in October the 30th. Everything's different. So it's unique in that way. That's why I wanted it to be. So it gave a real story going through.
No reruns.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Rebecca asks in the live YouTube chat on the Titanic Book Club channel, does Amazon, or what's the best way to get it in Sweden?
Cool. So I probably Amazon. I think Amazon seems to be the way forward to get it, but I think you possibly could go through Pen and Sword. If you go to the publishers that way, they will probably send it anywhere around in the world anyway. I know there is a publishers of Pen and Sword in America as well, so America has it a little easier because there is a Pen and Sword in America. But Amazon is probably the way forward with most things.
Very good. When you were putting the book together, did you have like go-to source material? Were there certain books that inspired you? I mean, or that you really used as a tool to put this together, or was there just
Yes, I mean, yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, obviously the internet is an amazing place,
right?
without a doubt. So, I mean, in the back, I have given sort of some um, places really that is. I mean, places like Encyclopedia Titanica, for instance, is a wealth of information that you can really dig and delve into. So I'm very thankful for that. The TitanicInquiry.org is also another place where you've got the complete transcript of all the inquiries, the British and American inquiries. So that again is a wealth of information there. So and obviously other places, books and other books that you can sort of. There are hundreds of books. So, but yes, it's just it's delving in different places and trying to collate it all into one place. Because what I wanted to do was each day, if I could, somebody that was born and died on that day, I wanted to see if I could get a quote from that person for that day as well. So it kept the flow going. It wasn't always easy and not always possible, but I tried as much as I could to actually get that connection going on each day.
It's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, but I'm thankful that I did it. And in the original part, I wasn't thinking even that it would be published, but they picked it up and took it, so that was good. And now it's out there.
Well, how does that feel? Like as a creator, like I know, like my background is mostly filmmaking, and these days digitally, you send out whatever you did on YouTube or whatever, and you can't really watch people's reaction to what you created. But how has it been to have a book published and then see posts on Instagram from people around the world holding your creation?
I think to me, it's quite. It's very touching, if that makes us. That's quite an odd thing to say, really, but I found it quite touching that people, you don't become, put it this way, you don't become rich being a publisher or an author. You don't become rich being an author. For me, it's just more the point that it goes out and someone in Dubai picks it up and shares a picture in Dubai that they've got a copy, and it was very interesting when I first published it. I was sending out copies all around the world, and it was just phenomenal. It was literally going to every state in America. It was going to Canada. It was going to Dubai, Germany, just literally all over the world. It gave my wife great fun packing them all up and putting labels on everything and sending them all over the world. But it was good. It was good. It was good. It was good fun, and it was good to see people appreciate just the fact that they've got something that they can use. What would have been lovely is to be able to have it. I've had quite a lot of people say, "Oh, could it have been done in a different language? Could do it in Spanish and different languages." But obviously, that would be down to the publishers to do that. But that would be my dream, really, in some ways, to get it done in some different languages as well.
That would be amazing. And does the work continue? Are you working on any new stuff, or just enjoying having completed this book and gotten it out?
Yeah, I think I have an idea for another book. I do have another idea, but I think at the moment, I think life goes on to a certain extent, and you have work. I'm afraid we'd like to be Titanic full time, but it doesn't work that way. I think it's maybe a retirement book rather than an immediate book. But I do have an idea for a book, but which I won't share at the moment.
Yes, of course. Keep the surprise. In a conversation with Don Lynch, he once said, like, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who, like, their professional work is on Titanic.
No, that's right.
But so, what do you mind if I ask what you do professionally?
I am actually a construction tutor.
Okay.
So, or multi-skilled tutor. So I've been a carpenter for 30, 35, 36 years. So that's my my profession. I'm actually a construction tutor in a prison, actually.
Oh, wow.
So that keeps me busy. So anybody wants to contact me during the day, I'm afraid that's no go. So, but yeah, so that's been more of a change of career recently, actually. So, but yes, so I enjoyed that. It's very good.
Have you been in contact with? You mentioned earlier the great granddaughter of Robert Hitchens.
Yes.
Have you been sort of like connecting with these long lost relatives, and what has that been like?
Not overly. I mean, when we were Sally was had found the grave of Robert Hitchens. She searched out and found where he was buried, and so it gave me the opportunity. So I don't think you can see that at all. Hopefully, you can see it.
Yeah.
Just for a second or two. So basically, what I did is worked with the council in Aberdeen, and we managed to get a grave stone for Robert. So Sally and myself were sort of involved in that, and that was something quite touching to get that, because it was really a pauper's grave that he had. So no gravestone, nothing. But Sally managed to find where his plot that was in the Aberdeen cemetery, and then we worked for quite a while to get a stone put there. So that was quite a good thing to do, and so we worked together on that quite a lot. And but we don't sort of keep in contact that often, but it's but that was quite a good thing to be able to connect up and get the family involved. So my dad came, and we had that all done, which was good. And a little ceremony to unveil that, and yeah, that was in 2019. It doesn't feel that long ago, but it is a few years ago now.
Yeah, that COVID 5 years was a jump, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah, it
Very,
was. It was.
very violent and shocking thud. How do you feel about, you tell people, I found out that I'm the great grandson of Robert Hitchens, and Hitchens is like kind of villainized
Yes.
in at least the Titanic film. For anyone watching that doesn't really remember, he's the "shut that hole in your face"
Yeah, that'll be this. That'll be
character.
this fella here.
Oh my goodness! So you've been in contact with him?
I didn't actually meet him, sadly, but he did do me. He did do a signed photo, which just basically says delighted to sign for a relative of Bobby Hitchens. All the best, Paul Brightwell. So that was quite nice to have as a memento. I think, yeah. I mean, from that point of view, carrying on with that same vein, obviously Liam Tolley, he's been around. So I had that one from Liam Tolley, which was to Simon, great grandson of Robert Hitchens, helmsman of the real Titanic. Liam Tolley, chief
For
baker.
anyone out there who doesn't know, yeah, he played the chief baker.
That's right.
Joachim in the movie.
Yeah, and also there was Emmett James as well, who was able to do that. This one was quite a special one, actually. This one I never met him, of course. Jonathan Evan Jones, and he played Wallace Hartley in the film.
Oh,
so that was quite a nice one to have. It's been a privilege. So yeah, that there's so many little things like. But yes, in the film, I think sadly, I think he was villainized. Not, I don't think very fairly. I think in the film they sort of clubbed together all the lifeboats into one, and basically I think it would have been better off have done a generic lifeboat rather than put Robert in one for saying things he didn't say.
right.
So I think it was, yeah. I mean, Lifeboat 8 was where that was said about shutting the hole in your face sort of thing. That was Lifeboat 8, so it wasn't even Lifeboat 6 at all.
Right.
So sadly, things were moved around, this sort of wrong accent. And I'm not saying he was an angel by any means, and I know that there were things that could have been done better, I'm sure, but he did what he was supposed to do. He was told to go for the light, and that's exactly what he did. He went for the light and was going to drop off survivors there and go back. That was what he was told to do. So whether some would have done it or not done it, it's interesting because I had Helen Bessinger, who's the great granddaughter of Molly Brown, if you want to put it that way, Margaret Brown, and she did one of the forwards for the book. which is quite nice because that puts us together.
Yeah. Couple generations later.
Yes, which will be good to meet her one day.
We should do it. We should make it happen. We'll schedule a podcast with both of you on it at the same time.
To a Lifeboat 6 reunion.
Yeah. What else have you got there with you in the room?
I've got this here. I'm not sure if the glass will shine or not.
Yeah.
But that's Robert Hitchens. That is his handwriting. That is his sheet. So that's quite a nice thing to have.
Was that in the family, or how did you get your hands on that?
No, it was actually someone had quite a lot of bits and pieces. One of them was later on. Robert Hitchens was in jail for a few years, and so I've got a few prison letters that he sent out. So I have those, and they're more. I'm more of a custodian of the things rather than, So there's some handwritten letters from Robert from the prison. One thing I have got, which is in the family, is I've got it here actually, which is quite a big old thing. And that's this here, which is a lap tray with a world map on it.
Wow.
And this was owned by Robert. He used to, after Titanic, he obviously continued traveling around the world and different ships, and he would take that everywhere he went. So that's something he owned all his life after Titanic, and then it was passed to his mother, my nan, and then that was passed to my dad, and then I'm sort of looking after it now. So that's probably one of the only things that is known of as owned by Robert. So that's quite a nice thing to have. But yeah, it's quite amazing the I don't know, the enthusiasm that people have for Titanic, and there are different. It's a wide bunch of people. We're all different, but it's been good to have like the Instagram, which is probably one of the biggest things that I felt has been really good to connect to so many different people like yourself, and others that you can get a little bit more personal and chat. So which to be honest is why I did, because I've done on the Instagram now like a subscriber side of it, which is more designed for those that are really interested in Titanic, and it gives me an opportunity to do more live, more personal live chats and show more bits and pieces that probably wouldn't generally share in the open. But so there is a subscriber side to it.
Yeah,
as well.
I think yours Instagram was the first time I saw that feature. I didn't
realize
it was something that could be done. But that's super cool. Again, if you're listening and you want to check this out, I encourage you to. He is on Instagram at Titanic_memorabilia, and his book, Titanic Day by Day, 366 Days with the Titanic, is a must-own for any Titanic enthusiast. And you can find that on Amazon or from the publisher Pen and Sword Books online. Is there anything that we didn't have a chance to touch on that you'd like to mention before we go?
Not really. I think you've covered most things, but really just thank you for having me on aboard. Yeah, it's been great to chat. So it's been a long while coming to be face to face in some ways.
Connect. I've so many friends I've made on the Instagrams, and I haven't actually had a conversation with. So
yes,
it was a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you for taking the time. I want to thank Jill Carlier, as you mentioned, and the Titanic Book Club. Listeners out there, be sure you're subscribed to the book club on YouTube. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. If you love conversations with inspirational creators, you can find many more on my personal podcast, Cove Pod, wherever you listen to podcasts. I want to say thank you one more time to our guest, Simon Medhurst. Be sure to find him on Instagram at Titanic Memorabilia. And thank you for tuning in. Pick up his book, Titanic Day by Day, and check it out. Thank you again, Simon.
No, thank you for having me.
everyone out there for tuning in. Until the next episode, seize the day, follow your heart's fire, and make each day count.